First of all, congratulations, because I know how long you have discussed this project here many times on the show, and to see it come to fruition must be quite a thrill for you.
It's a pleasure to have done Cosmos with a group of extremely talented people, and to see it fulfill all my expectations and more. I'm really pleased and delighted.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's gotten some tremendous publicity.
Yeah, it has.
The cover of TV Guide this week. I noticed in the Herald Examiner the other day. Complete review of it, which is rather unusual for the show that goes. And there's something I was talking about this afternoon. It kind of bugs me, and maybe it does you too. Television networks keep saying they want to put on quality shows for the family, upgraded. Now, a show like this comes along, which really is where a family can sit down with their youngsters and explore the universe and all about life, and it ends up on PBS, which is only unfortunate to the extent that it's not going to get the huge audience that commercial television has. Did you talk to any of the networks at all about something like this?
Well, we didn't try to sell it to the networks.
Right.
KCET Los Angeles, the PBS station here, came to us with a proposal, and as soon as it was clear that we would have content control, we said yes. And part of the reason that PBS is not a supremely effective competitor with the networks is that there aren't PBS stations in a lot of places, and they're also UHF instead of VHF, so they're just not, people can't have access to it. But we're hopeful, at least some people have said.
I would like to think that along the way that the major network will pick up on it and show these episodes.
Well, I hope so too, and if you happen to see Fred Silverman, you might mention it.
Yeah, let me check with him. His office right here. He actually moved right down here to keep a tight control on things. When people talk about the universe and the cosmos, what's the difference? Cosmology and astronomy are related, but
certainly related. But cosmos is a Greek word which means not just the universe, but the aspect of it which permits it to be understood, the ordered and regular aspect of it. You could imagine a universe which was fabulously chaotic, in which there were no regularities, no rules, no laws of nature.
Right.
But fortunately, we don't live in such a universe. We live in a universe which can be understood, in which the laws of nature here are the same as billions of light years away, which means that all you have to do is study the science here, and you can know about a whole lot of other places.
So far, that does hold up, doesn't it? That the mathematical and physical laws that are observable here seem to be universal as far as can be determined now.
Yeah, it's a remarkable fact.
Do you think there's any possibility? Now, of course, we're right back to the chicken and the egg thing again. Possibility that there might be something. Well, how can there be something beyond something? It's the old finite.
Depends what the definition of the universe is. If the universe is everything that is, then there isn't anything outside the universe. But it is possible to have closed-off regions of space which are separated from others, and in that sense there might be other universes, and there might even be ways of going to them, although this is a highly speculative point. In Cosmos, we have some fun with this. I slide down into a black hole to find out what happens. You see me disappearing down the black hole.
It's an interesting term, isn't it, for something that you can't see. So how do you describe what the black, since one cannot be seen, I guess it's there because of the emissions of the...
Well, it's two ways. One is it's enormous gravity. A black hole is a place where the gravity is so intense that even light can't get out, so it's completely dark. But if it's revolving around some other object that is shining, then by the gravitational tugs that the black hole makes on this other star, you can detect its presence. And another thing that happens is that black holes tend to have disks of matter surrounding them, in which the friction generates X-rays. And one of the candidate black holes, something called Cygnus X1, both does this gravitational pull and is a source of X-rays, and very likely is an example of the legendary black hole.
Yeah, then there was the theory that once you enter a black hole, you could go into another universe or into another time frame. I suppose that's science fiction so far?
Well, there are some people who seriously think that if you were to slip down into a black hole and could survive the trip, which is highly unlikely, that you would emerge somewhere else in space and some when else in time.
Yeah, those are concepts that are hard for the mind to really sort out.
And they might even be false, but they're fun to talk about.
We have a couple of little pieces of film from, is this from one of the upcoming episodes?
Yeah.
Tell you what we'll do. Let me do the commercial first, then we'll come back and tell us what we're going to see.
Terrific.
And we'll watch together. Stay where you are. Okay, Carl, why don't you explain what we should look for in this first clip here.
Well, cosmos is certainly about things in astronomy, but it's about a whole lot of other things, too. A lot of other sciences, but also myth and politics and religion and history. Also biology. And the two clips we're going to see have to do, one, with what it is really like were you to dive into a living cell. I prick my finger and make some blood. Then the camera swims into the bloodstream.
It's like Fantastic Voyage, yeah?
Except we go deeper than they did, into the cell, towards the heart of life, the DNA molecule. The other one shows in 40 seconds a compression of the 4 billion year history of life on Earth. So we evolved from the first cell to human beings. I don't know what order you have it in, but...
What do we have first? Well, we'll talk over it here. You can watch the monitor, watch it here, and then we can... Here's a monitor right up here, Carl.
Good. So here is the blood gushing from my finger. This is episode 2 of Cosmos.
Is this like an electron microscope type?
No, this is so far optical microscopy.
Right.
You can see this with an ordinary microscope if you were down at that level. And every one of those is a red blood cell carrying oxygen, as the line of my co-writer Annie Gian says, to the remotest freckle.
Those are cells in the blood.
Those are cells in the blood, and most of them are red blood cells, but we are going to dive into a leukocyte, this one, a lymphocyte, and we're going to dive into the inside of the cell, which is quite like many other cells in the body. And all of this information is as precise as we can manage it. You can see a bunch of 5 green blobs that we're approaching. Those are kind of factories on which enzymes are manufactured by instructions sent from inside the nucleus of the cell.
In a single cell?
The nucleus, yeah. This is a whole cosmos inside a cell. This big blue lump to the right that we're approaching is the outside of the nucleus of the cell. In there is the holy of holies, the place where every activity in the cell and in all of life is directed from. The nucleus contains the master molecule of life, DNA, which we see here. It's been described as an explosion in a spaghetti factory. Every one of those long strands is a molecule of DNA containing all the hereditary information.
The double helix?
Double helix.
It's almost surrealistic, right? A cell is almost like the universe in microcosm, right?
Yeah, it's exactly the right word, a microcosm, a small universe.
Yeah.
And there are trillions of such cells within us. In fact, there are as many cells in the human body as there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. And every one of those cells comes, of course, from one cell, a fertilized egg, and every one of them contains the identical genetic information on how to make the next generation.
Yeah. You mentioned the Milky Way galaxy, our galaxy, which we can't see because we're stuck in the middle of it, like in the forest. But I was reading an article, I think, in Astronomy magazine, where they kind of depicted what it would look like if you could ever observe it from the outside.
We do that in Cosmos. We approach the Milky Way from the outside.
And our galaxy is just one of billions of galaxies.
That's right. So there are something like a 1 followed by 22 zeros number of stars in the cosmos.
Yeah.
It's an extremely big place.
Yeah, and the average distance between the stars, you look at night and they look so close together, and the average distance is maybe 4 or 5 light years apart,
That's
right?
A light year being about 10 trillion kilometers.
So actually, space is actually mostly empty.
The universe is made mostly of nothing.
Yeah. I know you hold to the fact, or you're one of the people, I think, that would like to believe that there are intelligent beings on other planets. We've discussed this before, but it's always intriguing because of what it would do psychologically, probably, to human beings here.
I think it would be a character-building experience for us. I mean, think of the arrogance of assuming that out of 100 billion stars in this Milky Way galaxy, or 400 billion stars, that ours is the only one which has an inhabited planet. It's such a self-centered...
It's a rather chauvinistic attitude, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, but then there are other people who think we may well be unique and put up fairly valid arguments showing what has to happen here is very unlikely that it would happen some other places. They put forth those arguments anyway.
Yeah, those arguments are put forth. Precisely what happened here is impossible to happen somewhere else. But life covers many different forms.
Yeah, we look at us, you know, I think we've talked about this some before. Somebody said if you were going to create a perfect human, or when I say human, a perfect living thing, you wouldn't have 2 ears over here. You would have something coming out of the top of your head that would hear sound all around, right, to be completely efficient.
Well, there's no question that we are the way we are because of a long evolutionary heritage, and, you know, our ancestors walked on 4 legs. Well, in fact, we'll see that in the next clip, and a lot of the...
I don't think so.
Can we run it quickly?
Right away.
Run it right now, Bob.
Let's do it. It's 40 seconds.
Okay, let's
This
get
is the
going.
evolution of life. 4 billion years compressed into 40 seconds.
Here we go.
These are molecules before the origin of the first cell.
Now they're dividing. Yeah.
First communal organism composed of many cells. Here's our ancestor who was stuck on the ocean bottom, which then evolved gill slits, the ability to swim, something now recognizably a fish, an amphibian which colonized the land hundreds of millions of years ago. A branch led to the dinosaurs, but that's not our branch. Our branch, small, furry, scurrying creatures who took to the trees and then came down, invented language and technology, and became us.
We'll be right back. Okay, we've got three big shows coming up. You'll be first on Sunday at 10 o'clock out here. There's some people from another planet right there. Yours is 10 o'clock out here. Sunday?
Sunday at 8,
Steve's show is Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And we'll be on Monday at 9 o'clock for the anniversary show. Thank you. Have a nice weekend. There's the book. That's the show. Your name was discussed on this very show last night. We had Ray Bradbury with us, who's a science fiction writer, and we were talking about being out at Jet Propulsion Laboratory and so forth.
Yep.
Well, what's new in space, Carl? See, I like to condense the subject down real quickly and don't start off too big. Yeah, I know. I think I saw a comment of yours. I don't know if it was in Time or Newsweek. Somebody had asked you about the pictures that are out now. There's Star Wars, Close Encounters, and so forth, and they ask you what you thought. And you thought that they should be, not that you didn't say they were entertaining, but you thought maybe they should deal a little closer with scientific facts.
Yeah, my sense of them is that sort of the 11-year-old in me loved them, but they could have made a better effort to do things right. A lot of different aspects of things. There's Star Wars starts out saying it's on some other galaxy,
Right.
and then you see there's people, and starting in scene 1, there's a problem because human beings are the result of a unique evolutionary sequence based upon so many individually unlikely random events on the Earth. In fact, I think most evolutionary biologists would agree that if you started the Earth out again and just let those random factors operate, you might wind up with beings that are as smart as us and as ethical and artistic and all the rest, but they would not be human beings. That's for the Earth. So in another planet, different environment, very likely to have human beings.
Are you saying on another galaxy, it's not possible that there could be...
It's extremely unlikely that there would be creatures as similar to us as the dominant ones in Star Wars, and there's a whole bunch of other things. They're all white. The skin of all the humans in Star Wars, oddly enough, is sort of like this.
Right.
And not even the other colors represented on the Earth are present, much less greens and blues and purples and oranges.
They did have the scene in Star Wars with a lot of strange characters.
Yeah, but none of them seem to be in charge of the galaxy. Everybody in charge of the galaxy seemed to look like us. And I thought there was a large amount of human chauvinism. And also, I felt very bad that at the end, the Wookiee didn't get a medal also. You know, all the people got medals, and the Wookiee who had been in there fighting all the time, he didn't get any medal. And I thought that was an example of anti-Wookiee discrimination.
You're dissecting this scientifically, Carl, taking all the fun out of it for me.
Well, that's it. I mean, you can view these pictures entirely uncritically.
Well, that's really what it was. It was a shootout, wasn't it? A Western
Sure.
in outer space.
Sure.
Good guys versus the bad guys.
So my sense is that every picture which touches on science could do that, and at the same time, just a little more effort to get the science right.
I remember one comment you made was about allusion to speed when it really had to do with distance.
Yeah, that's right.
The parsec or
Han
something.
Solo, that's right. Talked about getting to a certain place in only so many parsecs of time,
Yeah.
or speed.
Which
When
has
it's, a
nothing to
unit,
do-
when it's a unit of distance, it's like saying that from here to San Diego is 30 miles an hour. It just doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how many people were sitting there that figured that out during the picture? That
All you got to do is hire one impoverished graduate student and you get all the facts right. I mean,
can
it's
tell
very
you
easy.
when Ray Bradbury was on here last night, and I think I've asked you this question before, because if I remember in Star Wars, they got up and they got in the spaceship and they were beyond the speed of light, right?
Yep.
Now, as far as I guess science knows, that is supposed to be the finite limit of velocity, is the speed of light, and nothing can go faster than that. And yet in this picture, they were going faster than that. And I asked Ray, I said, what would happen? I think I asked you the same question. If they found something that was beyond the speed of light, how wouldn't that change all of the whole
Yeah, well,
physical conception of what's going on?
a lot of people are sort of annoyed that physicists should lay any constraints on what we
Yeah.
could do in the future. But I think the way to look at it is something like this. This is all due to Einstein. I mean, it has to
Right.
be laid in his lap, all the people who are annoyed at not being able to travel faster than the speed of light. It's simply this. If no material object can travel at or beyond the speed of light, then there's a great deal of things in the world that are understandable quantitatively in detail. The universe makes sense. If it were possible to travel faster than the speed of light, then all of that comprehensibility breaks down, and there are a lot of awkward things that can happen, such as effects preceding causes. If you see what I mean. The light goes on, and then you walk to the switch to turn it, and things like
Wasn't
that.
there a famous poem about that after Einstein's? There was a young lady from
named-
Bright.
named Bright, who could travel much faster than light.
She
Set
left.
out one day in a relative way and returned the preceding night.
Right, that's the one. That was little Carl Sagan reciting. And now let's hear our next student. Very good, Carl. You may take your seat. We'll be right back after this and talk about some. We're talking about Star Wars during the commercial. I said, you realize Star Wars made over $200 million? And he said, you could go to a planet for $200 million, right?
It's true, that's what it costs.
And see
Unmanned
it, and
spacecraft.
see it live, right?
Unless you go coach. You can go.
That's right, and then you get that one little trade dinners and it's lousy. We've talked about this before, but the fascination is still mind-boggling. You're involved now with looking for extraterrestrial intelligence, right? With a committee. How do you go about looking for?
Well, there are a number of popular ideas.
How would you know it? I mean, that they were. Maybe we couldn't comprehend what they were trying to tell us. Is that a possibility?
Sure, but it's a little like this. If you're an advanced civilization and you wish to communicate to a backward civilization, you talk slow and simple.
And obviously we would be the backward civilization because
would.
we do not have that capability of
Well,
doing
we've
what...
just emerged. Our technology just barely has come to the point where we're able to send spacecraft to probe in a halting and tentative way the nearby planets, and in which we're able to construct large radio telescopes to see if anyone is sending us a message. And it's this latter end of things that, for the first time, is now being funded at a quite low level, but the first operational program that NASA has funded is in the present budget. And the idea is simply to look at a lot of stars or carve up the sky into little pieces and look at each piece and see if there's a message coming to us. Now,
even the nearest one would be...
Well, nearest star is a little more than 4 light years away, so if we got a message today, it left that star 4 years ago. But, you know, we ought to be used to that kind of idea. You look at the sun, you're not seeing it now, you're seeing it 8 minutes ago, because it took 8 minutes for light to travel at the speed of light from the sun to the Earth. Question of how you would recognize a signal as intelligent. Suppose you heard something which said beep, 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 and went through the first 30 or so prime numbers.
That's an answering service. In other words, you go through the numbers.
Yeah, and there's no natural process which, you know, would say 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17.
which are unless I missed one, the first few prime numbers. And so you would say, well, look, here's somebody who, for some reason, is into prime numbers. Prime number is a number that can only be divided by 1 in itself.
Right.
Here's somebody who's into prime numbers. They've attracted our attention. There must be more to it than just prime numbers. And then you would look more closely. That's the sort of
So you figured the
general
signals you
scenario
would get would be in some kind of mathematical,
well, it would be so regular.
which is a
that
universal type of...
Yeah, that you could only
initiation.
say, the only possibility would be that it was intelligent, and then you would look for the more detailed message, either at faster time resolution or at some adjacent frequency or something of that sort. The remarkable thing is that for all of the history of mankind, people have wondered about intelligence elsewhere. I think it's in religion and philosophy, legends. But this is the first time that we have the competence and ability to actually do such a search, and we're just beginning.
Are we sending out from here some kind of, outside of the thing that the plaque that you put on the Mariner or Pioneer?
Pioneer, and then the Voyager record, which we
And the
talked
record,
about once.
are we sending any type of radio signals?
Not really. There was one sort of ceremonial demonstration at the resurfacing of the Arecibo Observatory in 1974. A signal was sent by Frank Drake, who's getting married in 2 days. I thought I might share. But to a place that's 24,000 light years away. It's not a, so if there's an answer, it'll be in 48,000 years. Don't hold your breath. That was merely...
That's really being on hold, isn't it? Wow.
It was merely to demonstrate that it could be done. But in general, radio astronomers have not sent out, just have listened. But there are signals that are sent out, including this program.
I was going to, that's exactly what I was saying. Is it true that all shows, television, radio shows, that are sent out travel forever through the void?
Yep, they do.
They do not diminish in...
Well, they do. They diminish by what's called the inverse square law, so it goes twice as far. It's a quarter as intense.
But somebody with a receiver...
With a powerful receiving antenna and
So all the television shows and radio shows have been broadcast.
Well, the Earth turns, so they get jumbled up.
But are still traveling through the cosmos.
So it's a little bit like this. You imagine here's the Earth, and around it is a kind of spherical wave front traveling at the speed of light. It's now about 30 light years away from the Earth, because the first large-scale commercial television was 30 years ago. And in there is the television programs of the late 40s. Howdy Doody, Milton Berle, the Army McCarthy hearings, and other signs of high intelligence on the planet Earth.
So, somebody could be seeing Burl right now, walking around on the sides of his feet, 30 light in a dress.
And judging us.
And judging us, saying, well, Og, I think we got troubles down there.
I just hope they wait till Sesame Street arrives. It'll save us.
That's fascinating, the idea that goes out there.
The actual situation is that even if the programs could not themselves be made out, there's no question that a low form of intelligent life on the Earth could be deduced in that way.
If you had to make what I guess a calculated guess or theorize, when do you think it would be, if you think it would happen, when would it happen? Within a period of 10 years, 20, 50 years?
See, it depends on how much of an effort we make. If we make no effort, the possibility of detecting such signals is small. If we make a big effort, then the probability goes up, and nobody knows to what.
Now, people are going to ask you, you say because this could cost money. You say, okay, you hear from somebody 10 light years away. But by the time you transmit back and forth, what is the value of that? I mean, if you have to sit around and wait for 50 years or 100 years to get an answer, they're saying, why? Well, what are you talking about? 100 years from now, who in the hell is going to care? We're going to be gone.
Well, there's a lot of answers to that. It's a good question, but it's one worth pondering. For one thing, there's a lot of information in human society which goes only one way. Socrates talks to us. We don't talk to Socrates. That's what books are about. People who are dead convey their wisdom to us.
So somebody could transmit the knowledge of another planet and just send the direct knowledge.
And think of that. Think of a civilization on a different planet evolved under quite different circumstances than here. What is their art like, their music, their science, their technology, their politics? What have they learned? Have they been in contact with still other civilizations? Do they have a repository of such information? Think of how we'd be able to view ourselves in a new way, suddenly to have a new perspective. There's another aspect to it, too, and that is We are at a very dangerous moment in human history. We have weapons of mass destruction. We are in the process of inadvertently altering our climate and exhaustion of fossil fuels and mineral, all kinds of problems which come with technology. We are not certain that we will be able to survive this period of what I like to call technological adolescence. Were we to receive a message from somewhere else, it would show that it's possible to survive this kind of period, and that's a useful bit of information to have.
Yeah, wouldn't this be something? In other words, somebody has solved a particular problem we are still wrestling with.
It's good to know that the problem could be solved. I think it would be very, very useful information.
Or some of the medical breakthroughs, some way to end wars or something like that.
Maybe. Medical breakthroughs are tougher because I suspect our physiology would be quite different from that of any other creatures if there are some. Also, it's possible that you'd make such a search and the results would be negative. That's perfectly possible. You don't want to prejudge the outcome. But it seems to me that's an important bit of information also.
Right.
If it turns out that life, intelligent life, is rare, that makes something particularly precious and valuable about life here.
But isn't it true when you talk about 50 light years or 100 light years in astronomical terms, that is a minute distance?
It's true.
I mean, now you can get into thousands of light years and millions of light years.
That's right. A light year is about 6 trillion miles. The distance to the nearest star, as we said, is about 4 light years. But the distance to the center of the Milky Way galaxy that we're part of is 30,000 light years. The distance to the nearest galaxy is about 2 million light years.
Fascinating book, The Dragons of Eden, and of course you still got The Cosmic Connection, which is one of the all-time fascinating books. Thanks for being here. It is always a great kick. Lady gynecologist, you'll start when on your show?
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. Bob, where are you headed?
To the gynecology.
To determine your sexuality. Okay. Tomorrow, Shirley MacLaine will be here. Cheryl Teagues, Ronnie Graham, and jazz great Stan Getz is here. Thank you.
This is a common criticism, the idea that the atheist is guilty of a literalist reading of Scripture, no better than the reading of fundamentalists. And it's a very naive way of approaching religion, and there's a far more sophisticated and nuanced view of religion on offer, and the atheist is disregarding that. A few problems with this. First is anyone making that argument is failing to acknowledge just how many people really do approach these texts literally or functionally. I mean, whether they're selective literalists or literal all the way down the line, there are certain passages in Scripture that just cannot be read figuratively, and people really do live by the lights of what is literally laid out in these books. So, the Quran says hate the infidel, and Muslims hate the infidel because the Quran spells it out ad nauseum. Now, it's true that you can cherry pick Scripture, and you can look for all the good parts. You can ignore where it says in Leviticus that if a woman is not a virgin on her wedding night, you're supposed to stone her to death on her father's doorstep. You can ignore that, and now, to my knowledge, all Jews and Christians do ignore that. In fact, that's not true. There's some Christians who actually do, Reconstructionist Christians, Dominionist Christians in the U.S. who will say, I think the penalty for adultery should be death. I mean, so there are people who have the courage of their convictions there. But most religious people ignore those passages, which really can only be read literally, and say that, they were only appropriate for the time and they don't apply now. And likewise, Muslims try to have the same reading of passages that advocate holy war. They say, well, these were appropriate to those battles that Muhammad was fighting, but now we don't have to fight those battles. This is all a good thing, but we should recognize what's happening here. People are feeling pressure from a host of all too human concerns that have nothing in principle to do with God. I mean, secularism and human rights and democracy and scientific progress, these have made certain passages in Scripture untenable. Okay? So this is coming from outside religion. And religion is now making a great show of its sophistication in kind of grappling with these pressures. Once again, this is an example of religion losing the argument with modernity. It's an example of the recent shooting at Virginia Tech. The mother of the shooter recognized that there was something wrong with her son. He's suffering from some kind of mental problem. In the context of her rather doctrinaire Christianity. She did not take him to a psychiatrist. She took him from church to church in search of exorcism. She actually found a church that performed an exorcism. Just picture this. There's some, we have an atrocity in the making. We have a dangerously mental ill college student. We have a concerned mother whose worldview about mental health is trimmed down through the keyhole of a kind of medieval Christianity. And we have a church willing to put forward its expertise in the performance of an exorcism. It would be a lot better if everyone involved had a 21st century view of mental health. No one is, moderate people, moderate Christians and Jews and Muslims have to look at this situation and say, well, there's something wrong here. It'd be better to go to a psychiatrist. But the problem is you can't show what's wrong in terms of Scripture. You can't show what's wrong in terms of religion, because in terms of religion, the mother was right. I mean, there are demons, and Jesus cast them out. Demonic possession is actually a problem. The only reason why we don't take it seriously is because we have a wider view of the universe. The universe, that view of the universe did not come to us from religion. It came from science. Let's just grant the possibility that there is a creator God who's omniscient, who occasionally authors books. And he's going to give us a book, the most useful book. He's a loving God. He's a compassionate God. And he's going to give us a guide to life. He's got a scribe. The scribe's going to write it down. What's going to be in that book? I mean, just think of how good a book would be if it were authored by an omniscient deity. I mean, there is not a single line in the Bible or the Quran that could not have been authored by a first century person. I mean, there's not one reference to anything. There are pages and pages about how to sacrifice animals and keep slaves and who to kill and why. There's nothing about electricity. There's nothing about DNA. There's nothing about infectious disease, the principles of infectious disease. There's nothing particularly useful, and there's a lot of Iron Age barbarism in there and superstition. This is not a candidate book. I mean, I can go into to any Barnes and Noble blindfolded and pull a book off a shelf which is going to have more relevance, more wisdom for the 21st century than the Bible or the Quran. I mean, it's really not an exaggeration. Every one of our specific sciences has superseded and surpassed the wisdom of Scripture. From cosmology to psychology to economics, we know more about ourselves than anyone writing the Bible or the Quran did. And that is a distinctly inconvenient fact for anyone wanting to believe that this book was dictated by the
quality shows for the family, upgraded. Now, a show like this comes along, which really is where a family can sit down with their youngsters and explore the universe and all about life, and it ends up on PBS, which is only unfortunate to the extent that it's not going to get the huge audience that commercial television has. Did you talk to any of the networks at all about something like this?
Well, we didn't try to sell it to the networks.
Right.
KCET Los Angeles, the PBS
Right.
station here, came to us with a proposal, and as soon as it was clear that we would have content control, we said yes. And part of the reason that PBS is not a supremely effective competitor with the networks is that there aren't PBS stations in a lot of places, and they're also UHF instead of VHF. Speak other universes, and there might even be ways of going to them, although this is a highly speculative point. In Cosmos, we have some fun with this. I slide down into a black hole to find out what happens. You see me disappearing down the black hole.
It's an interesting term, isn't it, for something that you can't see. So how do you describe what the black, since one cannot be seen, I guess it's there because of the emissions of the...
Well, it's two ways. One is it's enormous gravity. A black hole is a place where the gravity is so intense that even light can't get out, so it's completely dark. But if it's revolving around some other object that is shining, then by the gravitational tugs that the black hole makes on this other star, you can detect its presence. And another thing that happens is that black holes tend to have of nature.
Right.
But fortunately, we don't live in such a universe. We live in a universe which can be understood, in which the laws of nature here are the same as billions of light years away, which means that all you have to do is study the science here, and you can know about a whole lot of other places.
So far, that does hold up, doesn't it? That the mathematical and physical laws that are observable here seem to be universal as far as can be determined now.
Yeah, it's a remarkable fact.
Do you think there's any possibility, now, of course, we're right back to the chicken and the egg thing again, possibility that there might be something, well, how can there be something beyond something? You know, it's the old finite.
Depends what the definition of the universe is. If the universe is everything that is, then there isn't anything outside the universe. But it is possible to have closed-off regions of space which are separated from others, and in that sense, there might, so they're just not, people can't have access to it.
Yeah.
But we're hopeful, at least some people have said.
I would like to think that along the way that the network, the major network, will pick up on it and show these episodes.
Well, I hope so too, and if you happen to see Fred Silverman, you might mention it.
Yeah, let me check with him. His office right here. He actually moved right down here to keep a tight control on things. When people talk about the universe and the cosmos, what's the difference? Cosmology and astronomy are related, but
certainly related. But cosmos is a Greek word which means not just the universe, but the aspect of it which permits it to be understood, the ordered and regular aspect of it. You could imagine a universe which was fabulously chaotic, in which there were no regularities, no rules, no laws.
First of all, congratulations, because I know how long you have discussed this project here many times on the show, and to see it come to fruition must be quite a thrill for you.
It's a pleasure to have done Cosmos with a group of extremely talented people, and to see it fulfill all my expectations and more. I'm really pleased and delighted.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's gotten some tremendous publicity.
Yeah, it has.
The cover of TV Guide this week. I noticed on the Herald Examiner the other day. Complete review of it, which is rather unusual for the show that goes. And there's something I was talking about this afternoon that kind of bugs me, and maybe it does you too. Television networks keep saying they want to put on